welcome to the show. What's up, Shane? How you doing, buddy?
Doing well today, Trevor.
Yeah,
Having a good
it's
Monday. You know, some days you roll in and you get a lot done, and other days it seems like a slog the whole way through the day. And today was one of those days where hit the ground running, and just kept knocking things off the list. Even the things I couldn't get done that you start and then you open it up and you're like, this is more complex than I thought.
yeah, yeah.
Even some of those have not been as momentum draining as they are a lot of times, is what I would say. So, a good
That's
day.
good. That's good,
Yeah.
man. It's good. What did you do anything different, or it just happens to be the stars and cosmos aligned?
I would say the biggest thing is I went back and I actually simplified sort of my morning routine and went back to basics and said, hey, I'm going to do all the things because invariably we always add complexity to things, right? We do it for a while and we're like, let me try to tweak it here, see if I can get more out of it, tweak it here. And next thing you know, you've made like 6 tweaks. And if you're not real careful, most of us, myself included, don't keep accurate records, honestly, of how we feel emotionally or momentum wise as we make these little changes, right?
Right.
It's very difficult I guess it's not very difficult. It's just something we don't do. But I don't put a spot on my calendar that says, hey, when I was here, I changed this one variable. And then, 30 days later, I changed another variable or whatever and track emotionally or energy-wise how you're feeling. I don't do it. It'd be interesting if you did do it. It'd be some cool data.
Yeah. I wonder what would come out of that. I want that would be super interesting. Finding out. No.
And look at your results too, I guess, right?
How important do you think a morning routine is? Like, or have you always just had a good one?
So I definitely haven't always had one, right? Because, when I was in the Army, your morning routine is get dressed, shove it to formation, and do PT, right? That's it.
Right.
That's the whole routine. Maybe get yelled at a couple times.
Right.
And then it was roll into the office and eat some Krispy Kreme donuts and drink a Coke. That was my morning routine.
Solid. Sounds solid. You're ready to go, raring.
Yeah. That was when I was like, 25, 26, so I could do that, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I used to have a long commute, so there was no morning routine. I guess I could have had one, but I didn't, right? I had kids, rolled out of bed, went there. So I've definitely not always had one.
Yeah.
I think the issue and importance of a morning routine comes a lot into play when you're no longer just a worker. And what I mean by that is when you're when you've got to be a business owner, when you've got to make those decisions, when you got to think, when you very well may roll into a meeting at 9 a.m. and the reason you're in that meeting is because other people couldn't solve the problem.
Right.
Or you've got to have some container where you're actually thinking and working through your problems. And like, I've got a couple of ways I work through some of those problems, right? One is some of the stacking you and I have talked about where you're journaling about an issue. One is my wife functions as a listening soundboard is what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows her job is basically to say, okay,
Dude,
what do you think?
Dude, that's so funny, Shane, because that is, if you were talking to my wife, she would say the exact same thing. And I can look back. There's been like really tough moments I've been going through in life, just in general. Like it wasn't always business, but it was just different things. And I would just start kind of going off. And this actually just happened on Friday night. Right after, it was like during date night, and I start going off, not at her, but I'm just like going off and I'm venting kind of. But then I start processing, and then I'm asking questions. And she literally said nothing the whole time, probably a half hour of me just, well, this, and then I try this, and she's just like, oh, really? Oh, wow. Like, there's just the typical responses, and it went full circle around where I solved my problem. Where I was like, well, here's what you do. And she literally did nothing other than I needed her to, it's pretty funny that you do that.
She says, she, and I'll do this for like, and I don't normally go 30 minutes. That seems, I think my wife might be rolling her eyes at that point.
I was really pissed off, and she understood.
But she'd be like, all right, that long, she might be saying, you need to go get some babysitting juice, calm your ass down, and come back to see me.
Exactly.
But yeah, she'll do it, and then I'll come up with a solution like 15 minutes in, right? And she goes, glad I could help, and it's sort of just a running joke with us. So that's one of the ways. The journaling is another, and then sometimes it's just walking and thinking about an issue, and that's sort of combined with the journaling. That works well.
Yeah.
And then it's just quiet time, right? Sort of that deep thought, I block off an hour or two to work on an issue, and usually that suffices.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not, though. I mean, obviously there's some big problems that take longer to work through, I mean, I
Yeah.
remember when COVID first happened, that I didn't solve that in 2 hours, so I didn't solve the
Yeah.
impact on my business in 2 hours. It took a little longer. But those are my three ways. So I think a morning routine is good. I think it's also great to get the blood flowing.
Hmm.
I think it, which gets you awake and gets you on point. I also like the idea that when my kids first wake up, they've already got a text message from dad, right? Like saying, "Hey, I'm up. I'm thinking about you."
Yeah.
Same for my wife. So I think those are great things to it. And then you have the ancillary sort of discipline mode, right? It's building
Right.
discipline, which I think is huge. I mean, you and I have talked about this. The people in our lives who've been the most successful usually have high levels of discipline.
They have to. I don't even know. I don't think I know anyone with real success. Not just like they got lucky and did one little thing and then they lost it or whatever. But real success, the discipline's like the key component. I'd be
Yeah.
like, that's like baking cookies and that's the sugar. It's literally what makes the cookie sweet, right? It's what makes it work. Because if you left the sugar out, those cookies are shit. Nobody wants them.
Yeah.
They're gross, right? I think it's that same thing. Like, well, dude, here at Legal Edge, like that's a pretty critical part of a lot of the conversation we have in the beginning is, hey,
Yeah.
can you develop the discipline to do the same thing every single morning?
Yeah.
Which I love it. I do. But at the same time, I also hate it because I remember for me when I first started trying to rebuild my life like 15 years ago or how many years ago that's been now. And I had no discipline. I had no routine. It was get up, have some coffee, try to like just manage life. And there was no plan at all. It was just throwing things at the wall and hoping everything stuck. And one of the reasons the morning routine became so important, but it's also one of the reasons it kind of drives me crazy, is it's the easiest way to exercise that discipline you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
For me, it was the alarm clock, right? I could not for years. I'm like, it owned me. Right. And it was like, if I can't have the discipline to wake up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever the time is, if I don't have the discipline to do that, then I'm like, well, how do I expect to make all the sales calls I'm supposed to make or invest in my wife so that, she knows that I love her? Or like you said, text to the kids, like there's these little things. And it was like, you need the frame. And I needed the frame at the beginning. What I found though, this is interesting. I'm curious what your take is on this too, because what I found for me is I got to a point at one point, this was years ago, but I got to a point where I was so in love with my morning routine that it became such a priority, meaning it was like the focus of the day.
Yeah.
And I forgot that wasn't the point. And and you hear people online all day long talking about this, right? So I'll kind of push the controversy against like, dude, you don't need a 16-hour morning routine. Right,
No.
It doesn't need to be this, just all these things, and you're rubbing your nipples,
Yeah,
and you're getting an ice bath, and do all those things are great. But I found that for me, I fell into that trap for a while because I was like, and it was like, but then I wasn't actually getting shit done, right, throughout the day. And so then I was like, okay, well, so then it was weird because it was like discipline, and it worked, and I developed discipline through it, but then it became my crutch of life, which was super weird. So I had to like bounce back and realize what the point of the morning routine was, and that there's no points for, if all the thinking time in the world doesn't deliver to results, if you don't ever do something.
Yeah, and that's I think is part of the key, right? From the journaling or stacking or working through your problems, whatever you want to call it, right? However you reach your conclusion, did it lead to some action, right? And like I was mine, it's like, what do I need to do here? What do I need to do here? What is a step I can do here? What is something I can do to move this along? Even if it's not a huge amount, but just a little bit, right? Or what is something I need to do? And sometimes what I need to do is, dude, this is more complex than a 15-minute walk. You need to block out 3 hours on Friday to work on it. Or you need to go get this piece of data so you can make a decision. But if all you do is journal and talk about your problem, or talk to your wife as your soundboard or whatever, with no concrete action item you can take place, nothing's going to move forward, right? So you can just keep coming back and reworking the same issue. And whether you believe that your ideas come from your subconscious or come from God or come from your wife or what or your coach, if they keep telling you to do the same dang thing and you don't do anything, pretty soon they're going to get tired of telling you. I mean,
Yeah.
any one of those four is,
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, and I think that's what because I love the conversation we're having because a morning routine matters, but it is not the end of the game. It's not like this, I've got to do this and I've got to wake up at 2 a.m. And I know many successful people. We coach many successful people that do not get up, in the middle of the night and call it.
Yeah.
There's some people that works for them and they want to go do that thing. But I know multimillionaires who wake up at 7 a.m. You're like, wait a second, how could that be? Like, that can't be true. The internet tells us something different. We got to get up and do all these things and have all this. And some people that might work for them. And I'm not here to say that it is or isn't even a bad thing, but I don't think it's the end all. What would be more productive is having a 30-minute concentrated effort that puts you in the highest level of power you possibly can, whether it's, some meditation, some prayer, you do that little a walk, right? And you do some air squats and some push-ups just to get your juices flowing and get yourself. If you could do that effectively, that got you ready to then go do the work, and it got you clear enough to go, then that's so much more effective than guys that I've watched get wrapped into this. They're doing their morning routine for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's I for a long time did the power hour is what I did.
I love
and,
that. I just love even the concept of it, just the word, the power hour.
Yeah.
It's like, it means so much.
And and it was done 1 hour, and I get up at somewhere between 6 and 6:30, right? It varies just a little bit depending on the day and what's going on, but that's my time. I don't like to get up before 6 unless I'm traveling, right? And, and getting up before 5 just makes me a terrible person all day long. So,
But wait, Shane, how can you be successful if you don't get up till 6? That doesn't make sense. It can't be true. It can't be true, right?
I'll tell you, one of the key things for me was not to play on my phone during that morning routine time.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's so easy to do, and sometimes I will now, right? I'll go on specifically looking for a connection with my children, right? Like UFC or something like that with my son, and some survival stuff or prepper stuff for my other son or cats or something. But that's got a specific point, right? It's not like I'm just scrolling looking for random stuff. I'm looking for a connection point with them. So there's a timeline too, right? It's that power hour. I've got like 15 minutes to connect to my wife and to my kids, which is usually a note to my wife and then a text message to the kids or a meme or something. So I've got to, I'm on the clock, right? It's, it's got to happen. But when I don't exercise that phone discipline, suddenly it grows. The power hour grows into 2 hours. And next thing you know, and you start telling yourself these stories like let me just drink my coffee while I scroll the internet and then I'll roll into my stuff. But I'm going to call it part of my morning routine, right?
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm about an hour and a half or maybe an hour and 15 minutes, but 30 minutes of that is half my workout. So that's not, to say it's a whole morning routine. I mean, I could move that to another time period and they would shrink it back down to the power hour again. So,
oh yeah, for sure. Well, I think you're hitting a nail right on the head. It's the same with me. I mean, I hit the gym for about 90 minutes a day, and I don't necessarily include that's something I'm doing because I love it. Right? I don't need that to. That's not that. I mean, does it happen in the morning? Yes. Is it part of my morning routine? No. I get up earlier so that I can fit that in. My real morning routine takes less than an hour.
Yeah.
Right. It's very quick, and really the outcome of it is as a business owner, and that's who our listeners, everybody listening, as a business owner, you have to get clarity on the day. You have to be able to execute what needs to happen, not the random thing that it just happens to be, the email you got that you're like, oh shit, I got to deal with this right now, blah, blah, blah. If all you're dealing with is that, and there's never really a plan coming into the day, it is so easy for a day to get away, a week to get away, 6 months to get away. I mean, we're sitting here. I mean, as the time we're recording this, tomorrow is the beginning of Q3.
Yeah.
Guys, we're like halfway through the year, and I can promise you, some of you guys listening right now, your year has halfway gone, and you don't know how. And you look at what you've actually accomplished, and all you have done is maintained, right? You're treading water, and you have literally just gone through the urgent things that got thrust in front of you, and there was no real plan.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? If you open up your email right? You're halfway through your morning routine, open up your email, dude, you're sunk, right?
Yep.
Because you're going to see a ton of stuff. And honestly, that's personal or professional email.
Yeah.
And not to sound more alarm bells, but you say half the year is over. That's true, but I can guarantee if you lost the first 2 quarters, you're going to lose Q4, right?
Yeah.
There's just, between the holidays, the parties, the socializing, the shopping, all of that, it's gone, right?
Yeah.
To be successful there, you've got to be rock solid in your discipline and have a clear plan on what you want to accomplish and do. And like today, that was what was so rocking about my day, right? I rolled in. Before I got to the office, I had a list like 6 things I wanted to accomplish today.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just bam, 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 right? And it was grind, not even grind. Grind would be the wrong word. It was just go, go, go.
Just execute. Execute.
Through these things.
Yep.
And since I had the list, it wasn't like when I finished, I had to figure out, okay, what do I have to do? Nope, it's knock this off the list, knock this off the list. And actually, things took a little longer than I had planned, but it was super efficient. So you're just getting through the stuff, right? With no issues. And I found myself halfway through the day, I'd accomplished like 75% of the things I wanted to do. I had one more, and I got other things I had to do today too. But of these action items I wanted done, and then I had one more item that it turned out to be a bigger project. But okay, I got it moving and started and grinding out as far as I could today. And now it's, I've got something that goes tomorrow, and, it'll work itself through, but it's going. And if you execute like that every single day, it's hard not to be successful.
Success is not actually complicated. It's just that we get real stupid, and just like you said at the beginning of today's show, we complicate it. Mm-hmm. We want to make it 73 different steps that need to get us to this place. And like, if you go to really I hate the word guru, but you go to any online influencer in personal development space, anything like that, they all talk about this same thing in a different way, right? But it's really the same. It's, can you execute on the things that you need to do? How do you get yourself in a position to be able to go execute, go do the things? And it's not a complex process, but it's so easy because most of the world doesn't do it. Most of the world, their only amount of setting targets and goals for themselves is New Year's resolutions, which they don't end up working. And then as a business owner, you kind of take it to the next notch, right? You're like, okay, we got to create some quarterly targets. But it's like I've worked with companies that they set their quarterly target and then they don't even visit it again at all until the end of the quarter. Like they didn't even look at it. So they set these targets. They had no ability to how to break it down to, well, Shane, what should we do today? What's today's actions, even if they're micro, right, to the thing that you saw that was like the bigger thing, right? It was like, oh, I can't solve this quick, but I took action towards it. I would bet if you had not mapped out and figured out what you wanted to do, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll bet if you hadn't done that, you might not even have gotten to that thing.
No, because it's too easy to kick, and it's ugly, right? The one thing that I couldn't finish today, it's ugly. It's, and I didn't want to do it. There are those two things, right? It was ugly. It was time consuming. It wasn't something I was totally familiar with, and I just didn't want to do it. And if it hadn't been on my to-do list today, I wouldn't have done it. I probably would have just kicked it down and said, I'll look at it later on. I'll look at it tomorrow. Next thing you know, a week has gone by, and you've made no progress. And then after a week, it's 2 weeks.
Yep. And this isn't anything. And here's what I'll tell you. If you're not doing this and you're not putting a plan together, the truth is you don't actually care about it. Yeah. And that may sound harsh to some of you because you're like, I'm so all in. I'm in on this thing. Like it's down. My daughter's 14, right? She's a competitive dancer. She's starting with a new dance company. They're a great company. She made their elite team. Super proud of her. And so for example, this morning sat and had a conversation. I was like, it's funny that we're talking about this because I literally sat and I said, okay, what's your plan today? And she's like, well, I don't know. And she was sitting on her phone watching some stupid YouTube or something at the time. And I'm like, well, what's the plan? When are you going to dance? She's like, I don't know. I'm going to do it later. I said, no, what's the plan? I'm like, what are the things you need to get done today? And she's like, well, I'm going to go for my walk down to the church and back, because that's like a thing that she does for fitness, which I'm so proud of her because she's done this on her own. And then she's like, well, I need to go through these routines, and there's another dance I need to learn that we're doing at a talent show next week. And I'm like, okay, cool. So when are we going to get these done by? What's the plan? So I didn't force her into it. It was just like, hey, what are you doing? And sure enough, I'm sitting here in office working. I see her getting back from her walk, and then she's putting on her dance clothes to go do the dance in the studio. Like it's being able to have that plan. Without that plan, especially, we could say she's 14. Of course, she's not going to be, maybe she'll just waste her whole day. But at 14, it doesn't matter. That's 14, 44, 64.
I was gonna
Like,
say
dude,
we waste
don't,
our whole days too, Trevor.
dude, all the time I do. Dude, I understand. Here's another part of this. I understand that. So this little device right here, I had to take social media off of it because
Yeah.
I know me. I know me. And it's not that I wasted a ton of time, but even 30 minutes of scrolling for no purpose on some social platform it was too much for me. I'm like,
No,
hell no.
it's funny. The that was something I was actually thinking about the last like 2-3 weeks. I used to have a 6 o'clock cell phone put up rule, where I just put
Right.
it up and didn't even touch it, and fell away from that. Right, started traveling, did some vacations. Next thing we're in bed scrolling, and I'm like, dude, what am I doing?
Right.
Right? I'm never like doom scrolling, and I find you start going to it more and more and more, and it's with and it's wasted time, right? And some people are going to say, well, I learned some stuff on YouTube and all that. You may. Okay, I'm not going to say you don't. I am going to say if you had an orderly plan, you'd probably learn more. Um,
Sure.
and you're probably wasting 2/3 or 3/4 of that time. And when was the last time you actually listened to a book or read a book, right?
Right.
Versus just scrolling, doom scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or any
Yep.
of those things,
Yep.
which we do over and over. But earlier we were talking about plans and stuff, and I think we tend to overcomplicate things, right? We just look to make it more complicated. I mean, like working out, there's tons of plans out there, and they say if you want to get the best workout plan for you is the plan you'll do, right? It doesn't matter whether
Yep.
it's good, bad, whatever, varying complexity, anything. If you'll do it every single day or however you're supposed to, you're going to succeed,
Yep.
at least to some degree. And I think we overcomplicate stuff because that actually means you don't have to have great results, I guess is what I'm saying, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if it's a complex, difficult process and you fail, it's okay. It's super hard.
Yep.
But if it's a simple process, which is make 10 sales call today, post a 3-minute video on the web every day, do a Facebook post every day. Well, if it's not complex and you don't do it, then that's on you, right?
Yep.
I mean, you just failed to do it. And I think that's one reason why we try to overcomplicate things
Yep.
is it builds in an excuse for a failure.
That's why it's easy to make. If I just make the fact that you've had the success you've had in your firm, if I make it magical or
Yeah.
circumstantial or anything outside of no, Shane just executed every day and didn't stop. Right? If that's too, because the problem is now I'm exposed. Because
Right.
I
Yeah.
could have the same result. Because like what I know, I mean, you and I both rub shoulders with a lot of successful people that have made it financially. They're not special. Like there's nothing that I have done in my life that someone else could not have done, which means it's not me. I can't even really take credit for the success of my life because if you went and did the same thing I did, you would have the same result. Like that's the part that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, Trevor, I had a coach years ago, and I'm still in his circle, right? I still talk to him sometimes. We're nowhere near when I first started using them, right? Because this was 16 years ago when I started my law firm, right? So obviously I was in a much different place.
Right.
And I bumped into him probably 10 years after I'd been doing business, and we were talking about some of the marketing and stuff I do. And he goes, man, how are you able to get that working in that channel? He goes, everybody I know who's tried that channel has failed. What are you doing to make it succeed? And I'm thinking, dude, I'm doing what you taught me to do 10 years ago. Exactly what you taught me to do. There's nothing in this. I mean, maybe the words have changed, to protect the innocent kind of, but that's
Right.
it. I said, and most of this is actually, I mean, I bought one of his courses, and that's how I wrote my first, stay in touch funnel was
Right.
off of his stuff with his examples. And that's how I was able to be successful. And I felt bad telling him I'm successful because I'm doing what you told me to do 10 years ago, dude. I'm like, that was the best $2,000 I spent, right?
Right. And he's sitting there struggling. Dude, you know what's so funny about that? I'll expose myself a little bit. This is back in my darker days, and there was a guy I was friends with. We went to a mastermind together, and at the time I made more money than him. My company was bigger, more successful, etc. But I was such a liar that I needed help, with what I was trying to do, but I didn't know how to tell anybody that. So I just postured like typical business morons do, right? And I made myself sound better than I was. I made myself sound like I didn't have problems, and I didn't realize this at the time. I thought I'm sure guys like you and me now, if I were in that, if we were talking to who I was back then, you and I both are like, dude, that dude's so full of shit.
Yeah.
But I thought I was like trying to, whatever. So no, I didn't get any help. I'm sitting there with my friend and again, I'm doing better than him. He's kind of struggling. He's a much smaller company. Fast forward, 3 years goes by. 3 years goes by. I'm making less money. Like my company's not doing as well. I'm on the verge of like switching companies because I'm like, maybe it's the company. That's the problem. That must be what it is.
Right.
And I run into this guy again. And first thing I notice, he comes up, dude was just fit as hell. Like shredded. Veins, he had a shirt on, but his veins were popping down his arms. And I'm like, and he was kind of a little soft when I saw him last. And I was like, dude, okay. So we start chatting. And then a very next thing I noticed, I looked down after we like kind of shook hands, did like the bro hug thing or whatever. I noticed he has this really cool looking watch, and I know watches, and I knew exactly what it was. And I'm like, that motherfucker has a $40,000 Rolex on.
Yeah.
I'm like, and the guy I knew 3 years ago, he could not. There's zero chance. I mean, he barely was pulling that much profit in for his company. So I'm like, and then we start talking, and then to find out he was like literally like 30 or 40x revenue from where he had been. I mean, he had exploded. He'd gone all in, and this is why I brought this up to me, because he didn't do anything special. As I'm talking to him about it, he was just like, basically the mastermind that we were at, he took some of those principles and just never stopped.
Yeah.
And it was so exposing to me because I'm sitting there now. I'm less successful by far, easily. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my gosh. And this is all my fault. Because I knew this dude. Like, I'm like, he is not special. There's nothing.
Right. I should have caught him. I was ahead of him, and I should have stayed at him.
Yeah, exactly. Even though he grew, I should have grown the same. I should have still been in this. And then I'm looking at my reality of my world, my finances, my business, my stress, my home life. Everything's just a wreck. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's all me. Right? It took me a while to figure that out, but it comes down to this. And I think bringing it all full circle, it comes down to how you set your day up. So whatever that is, you've got to be able to come to, okay, I'm going to attack today, right? Because you can come into a day and dread the day because you have all these things you have to do, or you can attack the day. And how you set that up in the morning, even down to how you get out of bed. I know how stupid that sounds, but like I tried this for a while, and I don't still do it, but I tried like when my alarm would get off to literally just jump out of bed. Like that was the target. It was like to literally just jump, like with all this energy. Even half the time I felt like I was going to fall over because I'm still kind of, alarm just went off. But it's like that. I was trying my best at that point to like set the tone. Like, what am I going to do? I'm going to attack the day. But it's evolved since then. Now knowing how important this is. But that's the key. Like if you, it's just crazy. It's like people who will stay up late, drink, do all sorts of shit at night, and they're staying up till 1, 2 in the morning, whatever. Even if they're getting to bed a little bit earlier, but they're poisoning their bodies, and then they wake up in the morning like 12 minutes before they're supposed to be on point. Right? Yeah. They've got a business meeting, a sales call, something like that. You got clients coming to the office, and you're just like literally racing to get there. You're frantic. Your energy's off. Like you show up losing before you've even started.
Right?
And I think
you're not going to get your day back. The whole day is going to be crazy. And I will even throw out there, and I know this is a lot of people won't say this in the entrepreneurial space, but I think if you're having to work late every single night, you're not in control of your day and your week and your month and your quarter, and there's some work to be done there, because I don't see that as a badge of success. I see that as a badge of things are out of control if it's going on long term. Because I know when I was working crazy hours, there was definitely some room for improvement in what I was doing. Hands down. So
when I think too, you look at that, and because it's a badge of honor, right? My chaos, I'm not this way, and accepted, right? So I could go to a group and I could go to a meeting, and everybody else is like, yeah, I'm super busy too, and I'm doing this, and I didn't learn this until I actually, in my mind, actually became successful, where I thought I was before, but no. But when I actually became to where I could really say, okay, I've done some things and I've learned some things, I've got some wisdom. And I didn't realize that statement, even if you're consistently working late, for example, not coming home, not doing all these things, it's because you're just doing a shitty job running the business. Like, it's not because you're a hard worker and there's this badge of honor that you can outgrind everybody. That works for the grinder for the beginning. But when you actually want to establish and become kind of the CEO of your world and of your business, it's actually that when you can click out, your business is running, you've got all the people in place, you've got everything going the way it is, and you can check out at 3 p.m. And I'm not saying this to be a lazy thing. This is, hey, if that's possible for you, that means you're a really good operator.
Yeah,
And
I
you
was gonna
have,
say,
yeah,
I used to be in mastermind groups, and one of the things, and I don't even know how we got on this topic, but people would say like, and how many hours you work normally a week?
right.
Right? That was like part of our introduction, and I can remember, uh, sort of being ashamed or sort of hiding my head, like, well, I work like 32 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm a loser in this group here. When in reality I'm doing the reverse. Especially the ones I'm crushing revenue wise and profit wise. Right? I'm
Yep.
making more money than you. I'm working 32 hours. Now, I mean, in hindsight, it's like, do you really work 32 hours? Because
Right.
I'm studying at home. I'm thinking about the business. I'm doing all those, but I'm not technically there. But you know, like we said, I mean, working 60 hours a week is just chaos, and you're
Yep.
probably dealing with fires all the time, and you're not making your business better either. So you're
Yep.
just burning oil everywhere. I mean, you're never
And
going
there,
to get ahead.
and there's to play the other side. There is a time for that because I don't want to make it sound like, hey, you should never work late or you should
Yeah,
never, you're a failure. No, that's not it at all. Because there's absolutely times, and there's pockets, there's seasons, right? There's pockets where it's like this is what's
yeah.
required right now.
And in the
But if
beginning, you're grinding. You got no
yeah,
money. You got. I mean, you can't hire anybody, and that
yep,
makes sense. Or you hit a spot where you've got too much work, right? One of your
yep,
associates quits, so you're having to do their stuff. That's all reasonable, but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the day to day to day, week after week after
yep,
week, month after month after month, with no end in sight, right? I mean, if an
right,
associate quits, obviously it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks or longer to hire a new associate. You're going to get your butt kicked during that time period,
yep,
especially if you've got one associate. But
mm-hmm,
there's an end in sight. When there's no end in sight, that's the problem. When
yep.
that's your routine is just to work 80 hours a week, that's a terrible routine.
Yep. And you've accepted it. You've just accepted that, hey, this is the way it is, right? And
Yeah,
because I think in those pockets, when an associate quits or when you're in that pocket, knowing that you're building out of it, it's okay. It's like you could do this for this time frame, knowing that there's steps being taken every single day to build you to that where that doesn't happen again, right? Because if you're
right.
sitting there and you have one associate and they quit, it exposes some problems in your business.
Yeah,
So you
it
can,
did me. And I
yeah.
needed two associates, not one.
Yep.
Because,
And you didn't realize that until it happened, because at the
yeah,
time you're thinking, "Oh, this is great," but then it happens, and you're like, "Oh shit!" So I think this is where I don't know, the experience comes in, and being able to understand this, because that's when you realize, okay, here's the problem I've exposed because of what I'm dealing with. I'm in a pocket. I'm going to be putting some extra time in, but as I rebuild, I'm not just going to do what I had just done. I'm not just
right,
going to find the one. I'm going to find two. And I'm going to build the operating system in a way that if someone quits again, they don't hold me hostage. I'm not stuck now. I don't have to go back here. But I watch all too often people don't do that, right? They will have the problem and they won't address it, and then they repeat it. And then a year later, they're in the same spot, and then the same spot. And the only reason I can see it in other people is because, dude, I did it all the time.
yeah,
I'd bitch and moan about being gone and being away from my family, and then I would do nothing about it. I would literally keep creating scenarios in which I was going to be gone from my family. And then I would say I cared about it, but like the reality was like, dude, Trevor, you're a moron. Like
either you
nothing.
don't care about it, or you're just not that bright, right? One or the other.
Yeah, exactly. Either I'm just dumb, like literally dumb, or I actually don't care, or yeah. And we get wrapped in this. I think this is why you've got to be around people who understand the struggles and the pains and the things you're going through, and you have to have a group. And this is why this is why you and I even started Legal Edge.
It is,
right?
yeah.
It's to create that environment where you can be around other people who experienced what you're going through now. They experienced it last year, or vice versa. Or maybe it's right being in an environment with you and I where, hey, we've been down that road. Let's show you a different way. Let's look at it this way. Create a map that builds you to where you actually want to go. And don't repeat a lot of the stupid things we all do as business owners when we take that hat and we say, I'm the business owner.
Yeah.
And we all do it with no training. We're
and
great.
and you need to be able to see what's possible, right?
Yeah.
And somebody to tell you, hey, you don't have to do this. There's a better way. There's a different way, or you can even build your own way. Right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
growing up, I would have never thought, hey, take Fridays off, or take a half a Friday off. That's like
Right.
what, right? And then I met a guy and he goes, nah, I take every Friday off, and I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah, and I'm making good money. I'm like, well, shit, maybe
Yeah.
I can figure that out, right?
Yeah.
You just know it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you want to take Fridays off, or whether you want to knock off at 3 o'clock, or get a 3-day weekend every 2 weeks, who knows? But, you need to be around folks who tell you it's okay. I mean, it's like if you've never flown first class in your life, and you get around folks who fly first class, suddenly you're like, okay, that makes some sense.
Yeah.
Right?
It's normal for them, and you've always just accepted something less.
Yeah.
Right. You've done something the way you've done it. So yeah,
So yeah, I mean, morning routines I think we established are absolutely necessary, and you got to be around folks who will call you on your bad habits too, right? I mean, if you're
yeah.
working till 8 o'clock at night every night, one of us is going to say like, dude, what's going on? Why are you doing
Yeah.
why are you doing
Yeah.
that?
Well, it's either going to be us or it'll be your spouse.
Yeah.
And your spouse is going to do it a little bit differently than you would in an environment where we're actually trying to help you win.
It's a lot cheaper to pay us to tell you to do it than to have your spouse
Oh yeah.
serve it the other way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the rub, man. You watch somebody building quote unquote an empire, and then they neglect their home life so badly, and it just fails, and then they literally lose everything. Right?
Yeah.
More than half. We always say, oh, you're going to lose half of it. No, you lose more than that.
You lose a lot
Right?
more than half. I mean,
Yeah.
because especially if the half has any size, you're paying a bunch of lawyers.
Yep. And then you've got the family dynamic, right? If you've got children, you didn't lose half. You lose visitation every other weekend and
More
Wednesday
like
nights.
80%. I mean, your life is destroyed. I mean,
Completely. Right. And that's there's no reason to do that, right? Avoid it. And as dumb as it sounds, it comes down to the way you spend the first 60 minutes of your day. Right? I know how crazy that may sound. So, well, if that's something we can help you guys out with, go ahead and head over to legaledgecoaching.com, where we give you some information, a couple videos, some training content on what it is we're talking about. How can you build a life as an attorney across all areas of your life? Not only have a successful firm that is making you more money than you even thought possible, but your rest of your life is on fire. You're just like the guy that my friend that I ran into. His name's Chris. And when I was out, Chris, you'd be just like him, right? You're shredded. His home life was amazing, and he was rich and driving nice cars. And I'm like, damn it, right? But that's really what this is for. So if you want to learn how to do that, if you're stuck, you're not sure how to get to the point Shane's talking about of, hey, I'm making millions and work 32 hours a week. Some of you guys hear that, and you're like, that sounds ridiculous. He must be lying. He's not, and it's not ridiculous, and we can show you how to do that. So head over to legaledgecoaching.com. Also, if you're seeing this on YouTube or listen to us on podcast, Spotify, or any of the other listening channels, go ahead and share this show up to somebody else who you know might get value from today, that hey, a morning routine matters to them. So, Shane, any final thoughts, bro?
Yeah, don't overcomplicate it, right? And if you think it's too complicated, it definitely is. And that's what I'm going to go from there.
All right, perfect. Well said. Well said. Appreciate you guys listening and viewing the show today. Have a fantastic rest of your day.